Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I rise to make my contribution to this very crucial sectoral debate. I am guided by St. Paul's instructions in his letter to the Thessalonians, chapter 5, verse 18. In everything give thanks, for it is the will of God in Christ Jesus concerning you. So I start by giving thanks to the Almighty. I give thanks to the many persons who continue to support and uphold me even after the long period of 26 years in this place. And over that time, I have sat on that side and on this side. I want to go back over that side. I want to go back over that side. There have been good times, Madam Speaker, and bad. But my enthusiasm and joy in service to the people of this country have never waned. My colleagues on both sides have been good and kind. The staff of the House and indeed the entire public sector have been gracious. And of course, you, Madam Speaker, despite our challenges from time to time, I remain your best servant inside here. And I know that we continue to have an excellent working relationship. I am sensing that the energy has increased. I thank also the leader of the opposition who continues to execute his duties with firmness and vision. To my people of East Kingston and Port Royal, leaders and constituents who have never wavered in their love, sincerity and understanding, I thank you deeply and renew my commitment to serve with humility. I recognize the tremendous support of my councillors, Lorraine Dobson and Jackie Lewis, my constituency executive chaired by Angela Chaplin, my task force chaired by Hugh Campbell, and my professional colleagues at my law firm. People don't believe that I'm a lawyer. and we're not supposed to advertise. But there's a firm called PFP Law and Associates. It's the best little law firm in Jamaica. So I want to thank Sophia, Marjorie, Cavell, and Alia, and of course my driver and CPO. Finally, my family members who continue to love and support me unconditionally. I am totally grateful. All of them. Madam Speaker, at the outset, I will refer to this debate as crucial, even though it has become a virtual annual ritual fulfilling parliamentary requirement, but not necessarily meaningful to the daily lives of those who are elected to serve. This year, though, as we go past the midterm point of the current administration, and the Prime Minister not even looking to hear this party, as we go past the midterm point, the people again have begun to assess us, both government and opposition, and the policies and programs we are putting forward to advance their quality of life. Jamaica is becoming more and more about the effectiveness and innovativeness of what we propose and implement, and less about the partisan politics which in recent times has been mired in showboating and arrogance. The people, I am sensing more and more, are now looking to the opposition for the way forward. Madam Speaker, those who listen to the government members' presentations Madam Speaker, two persons can't stand on their feet at the same time, so one has to sit. Yes. Angela,
Nobody start that.
Madam Speaker, those who listen to the government members' presentations continue to be disappointed by the braggadocio as the people, confront the reality of the lack of capacity for them in our economy and the breakdown in the human and social services and physical infrastructure. To them, at times, all seems to be falling apart under the lack of attention to the provision and expansion of quality services, while spokesmen on that side extol the virtues of balancing the books, improving the macroeconomic outturn, and trot out a recitation of praise for them from the international financial market leaders. As former Prime Minister, the most Honourable Portia Simpson Miller would say repeatedly, we must balance the books while balancing people's lives. She was right. Politics is all about the people. Their welfare must be put above everything else. And Madam Speaker, as we think today of Sister P, we think of her with love. And we pray for God's blessings on her as she continues to recover from this. And I must say, Madam Speaker, that we on this side were overwhelmed recently by the outpouring of love. And in fact, we have to salute the Prime Minister, who was first in line, the Minister of Health, and yourself. So many of you, yes, so many of you call. And we on this side, we are grateful for that, for Sister P. And Madam Speaker, as you have already welcomed so many who are here, we want to welcome all the former members of Parliament who are here. And we want to welcome also our former First Lady, Beverly Anderson Duncan Manley, who is here in the House as well. Madam Speaker, last year Jamaica entered its Diamond Jubilee quite tentatively, just emerging along with the rest of the world from the global pandemic, still with our legs wobbling somewhat, but with a common belief that we had seen the worst of COVID. And indeed, we all pray that that is so. Many perhaps may accept that the type of legacy projects that will be reflective of the Diamond Jubilee didn't happen due to its proximity to the pandemic. I think it is fair to view it from those lenses, and I'm trying to be reasonable, charitable today. But on the other hand, we must be truthful and cognizant that for many, the review of the year was one of ordinariness, or somewhat uneventful, if you prefer. Madam Speaker, the above notwithstanding, I would declare throughout our 60 years, this House and those who occupied it from time to time have collectively enhanced the development of our country and people. For sure, there have been missed opportunities and bad governance, but it is also true that we have seen brilliance. And indeed, we have seen united and inspired leadership over time. The people are calling for that once more. Too many of our people, especially our young people, feel otherwise at this time. And in my conclusion, I will return to that. But in the interest of time, and as I have two portfolio ministers who are here this afternoon, I'm not so fortunate all the time to have both of them in the presence. And they're very smart, because I know that when they are here, the licks might be a little bit less vibrant. But Madam Speaker, let me start with the portfolio of energy. The portfolio of energy in the last 7 years has suffered from the effects of bad management, instability, and neglect. 4 ministers, including the Prime Minister, have attended to this portfolio with little or no meaningful positive changes to show. Not much is happening, and every commitment given by the administration to the people, whether it's in relation to renewable energy, petrojam, electricity prices, and legislative reform in the electricity sector, has not been met. In fact, in some areas we have experienced significant reversal. Madam Speaker, nowhere in the ministry is the standstill more evident than the provision of electricity services, despite a policy objective of significantly increasing the ratio of renewable energy to 50% against fossil fuel sources in the Jamaican energy mix. Very little has been done over the past 7 years to meet that objective. Of Jamaica's installed capacity of just over 1,000 megawatts of electricity that we generate, only 178 megawatts is from renewable sources, such as hydro, wind, and solar. Only 37 of that has been added in the 7 years. And that project that came on was approved by us. Yes, in 2030. All the other large renewable energy projects were procured and implemented by our administration prior to 2016. Madam Speaker, we are pleased that the current minister has seen it fit to resume the important role and function of the Energy Council, and that he was swift to commence the review of the Electricity Act when the neglect was pointed out to him. We have to give him credit, and the credit will always come first. Right, he has been responsive to requests for information and meetings. But, Minister, we are sorely disappointed that after a period of rapid growth up to 2016, less than 15% of the installed capacity is from renewables. This is so, again, even after the Prime Minister set a target of achieving 50% by 2030. At the rate at which we are going, it is hardly likely we will even get to 20% by 2030. This is so, Madam Speaker, in spite of the Minister's recent presentation to the National Energy Council of the Integrated Resource Plan, number 2. And we have to move to number 2 because number 1 was stillborn. And the oft-repeated announcement that a request for proposal was just around the corner. We have not seen one single request for proposal since 2014. Madam Speaker, we recently received a presentation on IRP2, a proposal for an injection of about 800 megawatts of new renewable capacity by 2030. We haven't gotten one in 7 years. And it has now been projected that in 7 years, we are going to get about 800 megawatts. I believe, with the greatest of respect to the Minister and his team, that that's a joke, and that we are just chatting in this regard. And if the Minister is going to cite again that 37 megawatts plant, I want to remind you that that came on stream in 2013. Madam Speaker, we are also happy to see the resumption of the work of the Joint Select Committee of the Parliament to review the Electricity Act. We are still shocked that the work of the committee was stalled for almost a year while the cost of electricity continues to escalate, and we are now told that the JPS is into a death spiral. As the leader of the opposition pointed out in his budget presentation, there is a stark reality facing the Jamaican people. I want to quote from his presentation, and I quote, "The upshot of the overall mismanagement of the energy sector by this government, coupled with its ill-advised foreign policy stance, is that the price of electricity to the Jamaican consumer, which was 25 cents US per kilowatt hour in 2016, is now 42 US cents per kilowatt hour. At that very high price of electricity, Jamaican consumers continue to suffer. Manufacturing and other businesses are at a competitive disadvantage versus goods produced in countries with lower energy costs. It is a bad situation for Jamaica." End of quote. I want to commend the Leader of the Opposition for those observations. Madam Speaker, I also have concerns, Mr. Speaker, I also have concerns about the so-called benefits which should have been derived from the massive switch to the use of LNG as the preferred fuel. The LNG generating plants are now the highest supplier of electricity to the grid. We need to take credit for that because it does represent a dramatic transformation in the fuel sources. The question, though, Mr. Speaker, is, are Jamaicans getting the financial benefit from the changeover from diesel and heavy fuel oil to LNG? I submit the answer is no. Why is it so? Madam Speaker, Mr. Speaker, consider it. I really do prefer, Madam Speaker. Yes, the fuel cost on our bills, just listen to this, in 2016 was US 9 cents per kilowatt hour. By the end of 2021, it got to 15 cents, a whopping increase of 66%. And those are the figures that the OUR could provide me. They don't have 2022 as yet, and I know that the price of electricity has been increasing since then. Expensive state-of-the-art infrastructure has been set up in Jamaica to produce LNG, but it seems JPS customers alone are being asked to pay for this infrastructure, and no one else. What about the discussion that we had in my time of Jamaica becoming the hub for the processing of LNG for the region? Given our logistics and our advantages. This throughput of LNG was contemplated to be a cost-sharing exercise to lessen the burden on the Jamaican consumers. Mr. Speaker, JPS customers alone cannot do it without electricity prices continuing to go through the roof, crippling businesses large and small, and making it unaffordable for the domestic consumer. The so-called Rate 10 customers. New Fortress must find new customers, so the payback is shared between a larger group. That is why recently, Mr. Speaker, I asked for a better burden share as some JPS customers move away from the grid and the take-or-pay arrangements become more burdensome to those who remain.
That's right.
If it continues on the present trajectory, JPS will be in peril, but we are going to be at greater mercy of higher prices. In fact, some people believe that we are already there. As I have told this Honourable House before, it was also never the intention of the PNP government to introduce LNG with only one provider. We believe in competition. We believe in competition. The policy, no, we're definitely not the same. The policy goal was to promulgate enabling regulations to foster transparent rules and to encourage competition. This has not happened even after 7 years. The energy situation in Jamaica is insecure, and though late, we must stop wasting time and get our act together. Nobody is waiting on us. We must inject new thinking now to attract strategic investment, as the next 2 years cannot be like the last 7. Moving away from the grid has its advantages to some, but severe disadvantages to those who remain behind. Mr. Speaker, the framework to manage electricity in Jamaica was revolutionized in 2015 when the Electricity Act was promulgated to consolidate and modernize the laws relating to the generation, transmission, distribution, supply, dispatch, and use of electricity. That was a major accomplishment. The law itself mandated a review in 5 years. That was by 2020. We are now in 2023, 3 years past the review time. Our Joint Select Committee has been sitting, and this, Mr. Speaker, is important work. But of course, I have already expressed my disappointment that between February last year and March this year, we did no work to continue this very important exercise. But, Mr. Speaker, I want to get to another point, which is far more severe than just the meeting of the Joint Select Committee. What about the non-fuel charge on our bills? So we have fuel, LNG mainly, we have added some renewables. We have non-fuel. Today I'm not going to deal with the third part, which is taxation, which has escalated tremendously since 2016 and now.
Tax on the discount.
But, so let us look at the non-fuel charge.
No tax, but whole heap more tax.
The non-fuel charge is that which comes with transmission and distribution. In 2016, it was 13 US cents per kilowatt hour. In 2021, it jumped to 16.26. And that figure is not where it has stopped. The OUR is still not yet able to say where we were in 2022, but it has continued. Mr. Speaker, apart from some glaring areas of inefficiency of the operations of the grid, which JPSCO must invest in to correct, the bulk of this increase is coming from an increase in the amount of electricity that is stolen. Wow. That is stolen. The amount of theft has risen in the last few years. And we have been told that prosperity is upon us. Sure. Let that sink in. Last year, in these same debates, after careful thinking, I put forward a plan to diminish the amount of electricity theft which is taking place, and to which all legitimate customers must pay. I had suggested then that using money from the hedge fund tax, the government could implement a large-scale project of using rooftops in various communities and other spaces to install solar panels to generate electricity for these poor communities. I had noted that with the improvement in storage, because the technology for battery storage has dramatically improved, in fact, even since last year, and that because of that, we could almost guarantee firm capacity, so that when the sun is down, you can still have electricity being supplied. I followed up the proposal by tabling a private member's motion in April 27, 2002. Where are we today?
2022.
Right. 2022. April 27, 2022.
A year
ago. And it was tabled so that we could have a proper debate in this parliament, because every one of us inside here is faced with the howls and the balls of our constituents whenever they get their electricity bills. But what did my good friend say? My good friend, who has always shown respect to the ideas, he dealt with the matter in one sentence in his budget presentation last year. He said the idea is unworkable and that the ministry will come up with other solutions soon. That was the end of that. And
that sounds like bad mind, Larry.
I again call upon the minister to be front and center in finding a solution to the high level of electricity theft. This is one time I want to join in the call by JPS and everybody for a national solution. It will help to lower the light bills. So let us debate the proposal. Mr. Speaker, in looking beyond this government and in projecting for the future, I want to share, as I always do, some ideas as to the way forward, as to how to solve the problem. Firstly, Mr. Speaker, the JPSCO license comes to an end in 4 years' time.
That's right.
I don't think the government should sit and wait until that time is upon them.
No way.
I think negotiations should start now.
Yes.
And in those negotiations, because JPSCO wants something, the government should use its leverage to extract, even from now, certain things. For example, Mr. Speaker, we have been toiling in the committee about those companies that operate in the special economic zone. Those companies that provide services for the export market. We believe that they should not be hamstrung any longer. That they should be able to generate, they should be able to transmit and distribute to their customers in the zone their electricity.
You have to negotiate the license.
The member from Western Portland agrees with me 90% of the time. I just want to see some action.
Him can't manage it. Him wife claim all the action. Him wife claim all the action.
Mr. Speaker, we must be skillful and clear in those negotiations, Minister, which need to start now to pursue what is in the best interest of the Jamaicans and our consumers. It is the right time also for discussions to commence, I believe, on the separation of the JPSCO into two arms and two cost centers. There should be a generation company and a distribution company. It makes for greater transparency. Again, in looking to the future, I want to suggest that we focus on greater technical and non-technical efficiency of the grid. We need to encourage greater access to net billing and wheeling licenses. We have not yet gotten one wheeling license out of the door since the law was passed in 2015.
Not one.
Not one. But we also need to simplify the process, because this is how you can introduce competition on the distribution side of the business. Mr. Speaker, we also need to implement the first phase of the least cost resource development plan with the procurement of 200 megawatts of renewable energy. So I agree with the Minister, but again, let us get it done. Mr. Speaker, in also reflecting on where we're at, I think the time has come when we consider seriously whether or not we want to be entering into 20-year private power agreement with licenses to boot with developers. I think we need to give, but there is no need to give developers, entrepreneurs, any guaranteed rate of return anymore. No. I think we need to create the environment of a truly free and fair competitive procurement and allow risk takers to invest with the confidence of banking on their technology and efficiency in making their profits. But we shouldn't be guaranteeing any more rate of return. Mr. Speaker, I've heard the Minister spoke about this before, and when I mentioned it first time ago in 2015, it did cause some stir. But I also believe that the technology that has been developing for mobile nuclear energy be considered to be an option as well. We also need to maximize our carbon credit earnings. Many people don't know about this, but in 2002, when we established Wigton Wind Farm, we were able to generate earnings by selling the carbon credits on the international market. There is a growing, Mr. Speaker, awareness of the impact of greenhouse gases and a preoccupation on how to sequester or offset our use of things that generate carbon in the atmosphere. There are myriad initiatives in this area, and I really want to plead my own interest because as an entrepreneur now, I've established a business that is seeking to be the only body with the competence to broker carbon offset certificates and to trade in carbon credits. Wow. So when you see some wealth generating, don't begrudge that. It's hard work. Mr. Speaker, I also believe that we need to start to explore another option, using green hydrogen. Recently, I was a part of a global summit on the growing importance of hydrogen in the energy mix. And we want to implement that as soon as we change from this side to that side. Of course, we also believe that we should get into a faster track towards the electrification, full electrification of our transport sector. Mr. Speaker, I've spoke about the energy portfolio being at standstill, and that's a part of the problem that we face. Take Petrojam, for example. In 2018, the Zaka report on the Petrojam oil refinery was commissioned and tabled in the House with much fanfare. Yet nothing has come of it in the last 5 years. Madam Speaker, I don't support all the recommendations in that report, but at least...
Madam Speaker, in keeping with the tradition that members have always respected this process, I beg to move that the member's time, having been expired, be extended sufficiently for him to conclude his presentation.
Question is before us for the time to be extended for the member to complete his presentation. Those in favor? Aye. Those against? Ayes have it.
Mr. Speaker, I thank you and the House for your kindness, and I promise you, as soon as I see the energy waning, I'll stop. Mr. Speaker, Petrojam, despite issues of the past, has served this country well. We have never run out of fuel supplies, and we should continue to pay tribute to the staff of Petrojam for the work that they have done. But we must not give them basket to carry water. If decisive decisions are not taken during this fiscal year, then I fear that there will be no future for Petrojam, as other competitors with access to cheaper sources of fuel will put them out of business. We over here support competition in the market, but we have to give Petrojam a fighting chance. And the way it is projected, they will have to be shut and the refinery transformed into a terminal port for import. Another year has passed and no action. The country also needs to be updated on the status of the acquisition of Venezuela's share in the Petrojam refinery.
What the hell is going on with that?
And this is so particularly because we are sensing now an easing in the relationship between the United States and Venezuela. And in fact, some of our own countries in this region, they have begun to do trading once more with Venezuela under the Petro-Caribbean agreement. The matter has been protracted with payment for the shares sitting in escrow for 4 years while relations remain frosty. Jamaica must never be ungrateful to Venezuela. Because as we now celebrate improved debt to GDP ratios, we should remember that Jamaica benefited from a US $1.5 billion write-off. And I do believe that diplomatic channels can now be opened so that we are not in breach of the sanctions, but we can work with the US to achieve greater accord and at least settle that issue of the refinery at this time. The Minister will be happy that I have to move on quickly to mining. So I leave and I come to... Madam, Lord, I wish the Speaker was there, but it's okay. Mr. Speaker, the mining sector needs a reset.
Yes.
It needs a reset.
Where's Mr. Green? Mr. Green.
Once a pillar of the Jamaican economy, the sector is reeling from a litany of woes, many of our own making. It is a sleeping giant which must not only be awakened, but made to answer the call. In order to achieve this reset, I am again proposing a national consultation on the future of the mining sector, having regard to the emerging many issues, environmental issues, health issues associated with all aspects of the sector, and in fact litigation. A consensus is necessary for the sector to realize the existing still vast potential. Yet the potential of vast earnings still, I believe, Mr. Speaker, exists, but only with greater partnership. Among the critical issues to be resolved is that of a greater certainty in relation to the earnings from the sector, bauxite levy, and royalties. We believe we should never have a regime where there is a full waiver of the bauxite levy. It should never occur again. Additionally, apart from those existing contracts and licenses, and there are existing arrangements which must be honored, we also believe that no new arrangement should be engaged for the export of raw bauxite. Never. That we should work towards achieving greater value added right here in Jamaica.
That's right. Not at all.
And so I want to urge that we put the geologists at JBI to work at exploration of new areas for bauxite reserves outside of the environmentally sensitive ones. The truth is, the metal aluminum, being a sturdy, renewable, versatile, and relatively inexpensive metal, will remain in high use for the foreseeable future. Indeed, those of us who love the convenience of travel, whether by car or plane, the ease with which we continue to communicate, these phones and stuff, we want to continue to communicate and to invest in technologies that are beneficial to the environment. Must emphasize the importance of aluminum. And of course, if you are viewing the importance of aluminum, you have to view the importance of bauxite and alumina.
That's right.
So we have to contribute to continue to the world supply of bauxite and alumina. And I'm still hoping we will still be able to do some smelting right here in Jamaica. That has been our vision. Yeah. And it can still happen. It can still happen. I know that there is mirth from time to time when I come up with these ideas.
No, man.
But trust me, it is not far-fetched. And with the right energy mix, we can do our own smelting right here in Jamaica. So rather than killing bauxite, let us negotiate a path with all stakeholders so that Jamaica can maximize its earnings. Let us build back international cooperation. There was a time in the 70s when we had the International Bauxite Association. That was our counterpart to OPEC.
Michael Manley, man.
By the late Michael Manley. And we were able to use that association to get uniformity globally on those interests that were in favor of our local production. And I urge that we get back to that.
Visionary leadership, that
was.
I'm so happy to see the real speaker back in her chair. No disrespect to...
One day, Busher.
Madam Speaker, the national consultation for the industry being proposed, and again, it is looking beyond this government. It is looking to a time when we will be in that state. We have to go back to the experiment that we did with the manufacturing of rare earth elements and other metals. And later on I'll come back to that. But there's also a proposal that the government works with GISCO, Minister, to encourage them to develop Port Kaiser, because we speak about logistics hub. And we talk about Vernon Field. But at Port Kaiser, we have significant infrastructure to do transshipment.
And the rail connection.
And of course, the rail connectivity. So that's an idea. We also need to go back to looking at the real potential for limestone. Jamaica is 90% limestone. And we have not begun to look at the value-added system there. We also need to look at a massive reforestation of mined-out bauxite land.
Here, here.
I think those are some of the issues that we need to focus on. Madam Speaker, as I now focus on the specific elements of the bauxite industry, I wish to start with the Jamaica plant, where the government of Jamaica is in partnership through CAP with Noble. Madam Speaker, very disturbing news emerged today when I was actually looking at the website of Century Aluminum Company. I heard that the news has been broken since.
Yeah.
But that website revealed that Century has just acquired 55% stake in Jamaica. Remember, it's a plant that the government of Jamaica, through CAP, Clarendon Aluminum Partners, owns 45%, and Noble 55%. Today it was announced that Century has taken over Noble's share for $1.
$1.
$1. Doesn't matter if it's US or Jamaica. Really. It's $1. And I'm glad to hear.
No,
I am glad to hear.
Is it damage from the fire?
I am glad to hear a former minister speaking about liabilities. Madam Speaker, it is concerning as it is my understanding that the GOJ, as announced by the Minister of Finance, had settled all the outstanding debts to Noble.
Yes.
And is in good standing with his other financial responsibilities and commitments. I wish to call upon the Minister of Finance, because this matter is not with the Minister of Mining.
Yeah.
Jamaica was transferred to the Minister of Finance some time ago. And the Minister of Finance needs to state unequivocally whether the debts have been settled, how much, and when. Jamaica was recently shuttered, Madam Speaker, because of a fire in August last year. No, August 2021, which rendered the operations unviable. The matters arising from the fire, including repair and reopening of the refinery, settlement of insurance claims, the use of the proceeds, and the role of CAP in these processes, have not been transparent. Madam Speaker, we were told by the previous minister, who is not listening to me, who was responsible for CAP,
He's listening to a mole.
that the plant at the time of the fire was producing 3,170 tons of aluminum per day. Losses were estimated at 500,000 US per day.
That's the problem.
The company, we were told by the previous minister, had property and the plant insurance valued at 250 million US dollars to address incidents such as the fire. Madam Speaker, I asked some questions of the Minister of Finance in January of this year. These were not answered. They fell off the question paper and were retabled to be answered on April 18, 2023.
Hiding.
These questions remain outstanding, Madam Speaker, and I wish to suggest to the Minister that in our low-trust environment, these questions be answered immediately.
Yes.
Now that the sale of Noble's assets in Jamaica to Century has been announced, will the government state whether it has given its formal approval, which is a prerequisite? It must come from the government before any such announcement can be made. Will the minister tell the country, therefore, what is the value of CAP?
We need to know.
If Noble at 55% is $1, what is the value of the government's stake in the company? Also, will the government finally accept the opposition position to shift, and Madam Speaker, we have raised this issue before. Will the government finally accept the opposition position to shift the revenue regime from a direct taxation on profits and instead revert to the bauxite levy regime? And so if you are negotiating to approve the sale, that should be a leverage that you inject to ensure that the country gets better returns on this extractive sector. We can't put at the bauxite in the ground.
That's the problem.
Our people need to get money for it.
Absolutely.
$1.
Madam Speaker, I will not tarry too long on the rare earth elements proposal. It's over 10 years now that we were able to successfully develop a project where we recognize the 100 million tons of red mud, of waste, of the residue. And we, in collaboration with a Japanese firm, we meaning Jamaica Bauxite Institute, were able to extract some of those 17 rare earth elements that are so useful in some of the processes that we are so preoccupied with today. Your cell phone, your batteries, all of those things associated with making the environment better. We prove that those rare earth elements are in the residue. But it takes a little bit of, no, I was going to say exuberance, but but it takes energy,
Yes.
to get some of these things moving.
That's right.
And sitting down and hoping and praying won't work. You have to go out there and take some risk.
The balloon a leak.
And I'm so happy, Madam Speaker, that recently a firm called Geophysics, Jamaica, recently announced that it was moving towards new testing of the feasibility of extracting rare earth elements. The company believes it has now technology that is more advanced than the process that we had done 10 years ago. And as the Gleaner puts it in a recent editorial, the effort is worthy of celebration and its success could have substantial economic value. Madam Speaker, I see the leader of government business eyeing me and the time. There is so much to say, but we'll come back to it another time. But let me conclude, Madam Speaker. I began by referring to the 2023-24 financial year as critical. Emerging from 2 years of the worst pandemic requires innovation and risk-taking at levels not seen in recent years. Recouping 2 years of lost national production and growth is not easy. True, it is that some areas, such as tourism, are back to or even surpass pre-pandemic levels. But it will require more, as the pandemic itself has brought greater demands and inflation, which has threatened the quality of life of our citizens. What COVID has done is to further highlight and actually worsen some of the deep structural inadequacies in our economy. One of the most illustrious occupants of this House said the following in his last address to his party conference some time ago. I say, and I'm quoting, the mission of my generation was to win self-government for Jamaica, to win political power for the black masses of my people from which I spring. I am proud, he continued, to stand here and say to you who fought that fight with me, say it with gladness and pride, mission accomplished for my generation.
NW.
Madam Speaker, Madam Speaker, he continued, and what is the mission of the next generation? It is the restructuring of the social and economic society and life of Jamaica. That was 1969, 54 years ago. Madam Speaker, there have been a few generations since 1969, and we are yet to achieve that mission. We owe it to our people to innovate and to forge new and better ways, sunny ways of developing, delivering on new demands for paying higher wages through higher tech jobs that will utilize higher skills. We must focus like never before on creating greater wealth in our country. Such wealth, when generated, shouldn't be about money trickling down to the poor, but by deliberate policy, see greater equity in how it is distributed. We must move our country where the focus is shifted to creating a truly middle-class society and existence. That ought to be our mission. An excellent opportunity is now provided as we try to chart a new constitution. Perhaps we could chart a new Jamaica, if you will. We need to create a republic a republic that designs a social and economic society and life in Jamaica that places those on the periphery or on the fringes squarely at the center. That's how to create a truly middle-class society.
Hear, hear.
Madam Speaker, a republic that honors the basic desire of respect that each Jamaican treasures, with the understanding that respectfulness is the automatic responsibility of all to each.
That's it.
A republic in which the highest traditions of justice are matched with the basic tenets of fairness. A republic in which the I, the me, and the my are secondary to the we, the ours, and the us. A republic which is underpinned by a confidence that government serves the better interests of every Jamaican and not the unending requests of the connected, the favored, and the few.
Yes, right.
Colleagues in this honorable House, if we can show through the approach we take to the new design of our Constitution and the republic that will define us and our culture and that would be of our own creation, that we are fighting together for our people, especially our young people, and not against them or for ourselves. If we do that, then I believe we can sing along and celebrate the lyrics of the song, rather than being haunted by them when they are trumpeted in our churches on Sundays or Saturdays. What are those lyrics? Those lyrics. It goes like this, and I won't sing. We are a chosen generation.
Yes.
We have been called forth to show His excellence.
That's right.
Hey, all I require for life, God has given me, and I know who I am.
That's right.
In a sense, Madam Speaker, our people, especially our youth, are trying to know who they are within the national framework of our politics, our justice system, and our governance structure. The legislators who were before us, the independence generation, they set the bar high for us. We were the inheritors of their successful fight against slavery, colonialism, and imperialism.
That's right.
But in the period between then and now, we have not kept pace with their expectations. I believe it is within our collective energies to correct that lapse. Time will be unkind to us if we don't, and perhaps even more ominously, our future generations will be explicit in calling us not blessed, but cursed. No one here, inside here, can know for sure how much longer we will occupy these vaunted positions. Others have come and gone. We are here, and we don't know how long we're going to be here. So let us now unite around our legacy, that we will energize the imminent republic with collectivism, notwithstanding our competitive politics, but that competitiveness will be subdued as we seek to become the first generation of legislators to occupy the parliament of the new Jamaica. A republic we will trust, a republic we will protect, and a republic that we will love. It was William Shakespeare. It was William Shakespeare who said, "We know what we are, but I know not what we may be." I suggest we can know what we may be if we are prepared to take risks to realize our full potential as a people. I end where I started. St. Paul's letter to the Romans is appropriate. Do not be comforted to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God. God bless Jamaica. Yes. Thank you very much.